Welcome. Today's session has been developed to provide people living with dementia and their care partners inspiration and strategies to create more meaningful activities to in turn help improve quality of life and maintain well-being. Over the next hour or so, we'll discuss different types of activities and how they can be dementia friendly. And throughout the session, we'll look at the benefits and importance of creating a daily routine that includes all kinds of activities to maintain health and well-being. Here's what I'm planning to cover today. And if you still have questions by the time that we finish, please reach out to talk it over with my colleagues on the First Link Dementia Helpline. The number is on the helpful resources handout that's linked underneath this video. Today we're going to take a look at what defines an activity and ways to make an activity more dementia inclusive. We'll consider what to think about when choosing an activity, like where and when to do it, and even some ideas for how to present different activities. And we'll finish up by looking at different kinds of activities with some examples. If you're watching this, you're affected by dementia. Either you're living with dementia yourself or you're supporting someone who's living with dementia. So let's start about talking about some of the challenges that you may have experienced. These may be challenges you've experienced because of the way in which dementia has changed your brain, or it may be challenges in trying to involve your family member in activities. So what are some of the challenges that you've experienced with activities? So think about that as we move forward. So what actually makes something an activity? Activities can include almost everything that we do in our lives. Our jobs, roles in the home and family, leisure time, self-care, all the other things we do in a day. Activities are much more than just a way to occupy time. They provide an opportunity for meaningful experience and purpose. When someone experiences dementia symptoms, it can be challenging to find ways to adapt activities and create activities to ensure that their needs continue to be met. Keep in mind that any activity can be dementia inclusive. No one activity is ideal for all people with dementia because everyone is unique with a different personality, interests, past experiences, and abilities. In adapting and creating activities, we should try to focus on creating opportunities for success. People living with dementia often find everyday activities increasingly difficult and have shared with us that they may feel badly for not being able to do what once was effortless. It can be very frustrating to no longer be able to engage in a spirited political discussion or to follow a familiar recipe for dinner. That's why failure-free activities are so important. They always come out right, no matter what, and being happily engaged in a satisfying activity can reduce stress and improve well-being. So, an activity is more than just hobbies. It's everything that we do in our lives. Any activity can be dementia inclusive, and an activity is something that brings us joy or gives us a sense of purpose. So, how do we create those opportunities for successful activities? Focus on remaining skills and match the activity to the person's abilities. Keep in mind changing abilities that might impact participation, and also keep in mind that abilities can change day to day depending on dementia. This might mean adapting as things change over the progression of the disease. For example, if you used to cook elaborate dinners but now find that beyond your ability, You may still enjoy and gain a sense of accomplishment by helping with tasks that you can still do, such as cutting vegetables, setting the table, or washing up after dinner. Try to be open to asking for or accepting help and guidance if you find that you can no longer accomplish tasks you used to be able to do. Be easy on yourself. The changes that you are experiencing are the result of changes in your brain. Focus on an individual's personality and preferences. Make sure the activity matches the person's interests and seems meaningful or rewarding to them. But keep in mind that because of dementia, a person's preferences may change. You may be open to trying things that you would never have considered previously. And if you are a care partner, suggest an activity that both you and the person living with dementia will enjoy. Supported activities, things that you can do together, allow the person to continue to engage in things that they enjoy. And activities often become more meaningful simply when done together. Structure and routine help to orient the person living with dementia, so try to maintain a routine that's important, even when it needs to be adapted. For example, COVID or something else may yet again enforce restrictions on us. Having to stay home and not be able to participate in regular scheduled activities creates disruption and leaves holes in many people's daily routines. Consider the activities that you can implement at home to maintain a similar routine that will provide similar benefits. For example, if you previously attended a Minds in Motion class every Monday afternoon, consider options for getting physical exercise at home on Monday afternoons. If you used to have coffee with the guys at Tim Hortons every Friday morning, but now find that Tim's is just too busy and noisy, explore options for connecting with all or one of your friends via phone, video chat, or maybe meet with a smaller group or find a quieter location. And perhaps most importantly, be gentle with yourself and with each other. Dementia brings tremendous change and variability, and it's very important to know that we all have good days and bad days, and it's even more true when living with dementia. So be open to adapting even day to day. Change is hard. It's even more difficult for people living with dementia. Our ability to successfully manage change depends on our ability to adapt. It's okay to be sad or angry that your daily routine has been disrupted and to miss your regularly scheduled activities and friends. But in order to stay healthy and well, we must be proactive in adapting to change. Many people feel helpless and frustrated when dementia requires us to change how we do things. But it can be empowering to recognize that you still have a lot of control in determining how you spend your days, the effects that the activities you choose have on your well-beings, and the ability to manage your time at home. Establishing a consistent routine that meets your needs by including meaningful activities can help to maintain your health and well-being throughout this challenging journey. And it can give you back a sense of control. If you are here, you're probably looking for ideas for activities. I'm going to give you some ideas, but a good rule of thumb when looking for new activities is to ask yourself, do I do at least one thing a day that falls into each of these categories? That is, something that creates a sense of purpose, something that promotes health and well-being, something that stimulates or entertains, something that enables social connection and support, and something that allows rest and relaxation. Your well-being and health, and if you're a caregiver, that of the people that you care for, is dependent on these needs being met through activity. Creating a daily routine that ensures that all these needs are met, and then sticking to it as much as possible, will help you both get through your day more meaningfully. So now that we have clearly established that activities are much more than just a way to occupy time, and that they provide an opportunity for meaningful experiences, let's look at different ways that we can engage in activities that give us purpose, meet our basic daily needs, and fuel our spirit, or activities which support people living with dementia to do these things. As dementia progresses, a person's ability to participate in different activities will change, as I've mentioned. Adapting activities to changing abilities and remaining flexible are key to helping a person living with dementia remain engaged in a variety of activities that are meaningful to them. Let's look at activity through this lens of meaningful experience throughout the dementia journey. So why do we need to adapt activities to be dementia inclusive? Dementia is a progressive illness, and there will be recurring changes in cognitive and physical abilities as well as emotions. Because of these changes, activities may need to be adjusted multiple times. Here's an example. Olga crocheted every evening for most of her adult life. Her brain changes are now making it difficult for her to follow a pattern and count stitches. She likes being busy during the evening as part of her long-standing routine. Her husband, Peter, remembered the days when Olga would color with their grandchildren. He purchased 2 adult coloring books and sat down one evening with Olga at the kitchen table to color with her. As they colored together, they reminisced about the days when their 4 young grandchildren played in their home. The coloring books are left on the kitchen table every night. After several nights of doing this together, now Olga will walk into the kitchen after the 6 o'clock news and start coloring without Peter. Olga's new activity is starting to become a routine. This example focuses on Olga's skills, her personality, and a past connection. It also demonstrates how important Peter's role is. Peter and Olga colored together at first. They both enjoyed it. Peter's involvement and encouragement probably made coloring more interesting and accessible to Olga. Think about it. If he had just left a coloring book and pencils on the table and called out to Olga, "Why don't you try coloring instead of crochet?" What do you think would have happened? You may have noticed that dementia can include apathy, which is a lack of motivation. Sometimes people with dementia seem to want to do nothing, or at least very little. You may think your person is just not interested in any activities. However, the right activity and the right time can be successful. Sometimes the brain struggles to connect the dots, to take action or make a decision. I'll talk later about how to introduce an activity and why we need to be ready to adapt from day to day. Most dementias are progressive, and we broadly group the progression into 3 stages. These stages are not clearly defined and will be different for each person, but it can be helpful to think of activities in this way and to think about the overall goal for the activities. So goals for activities at the early stage are to provide a sense of purpose and enjoyment, to boost self-esteem, to decrease anxiety, nurture togetherness, and maintain socialization. So focus on retaining remaining skills and encourage continuity with current lifestyle. Usually minimal supervision is required in the early stage. This picture is Mario Gregario, who has dementia. Mario has developed a passion for photography, and some of the images in our various presentations are Mario's pictures. It's also key that we adapt where necessary to accommodate short-term memory and other lost skills. Mario is aware that his dementia increases the chances that he might get lost, and so he has connected with a physically active group of photographers. If he's going somewhere new to take pictures, he ensures that he doesn't go alone. As dementia progresses, the goals for activities need to change. And so the goals for activities at the middle stage are to maintain self-esteem through reminiscing, to maintain communication and social skills, to provide a sense of accomplishment and fun, to prevent boredom, and to maintain good physical health. And as a reminder, you can access a handout that goes into a little more detail than I am today by clicking on the helpful resources, and you'll see activities throughout the dementia journey. Because of changes in the brain resulting in more severe memory loss and often limited physical skills, people in the middle stage of dementia generally require simpler, shorter activities and instructions, and more supervision is advised. It can often be helpful to focus on past life activities, for example, sanding wood for a previous carpenter, or rolling skeins of wool into balls for a knitter. Goals for activities at the late stage of dementia are to provide relief from stress and frustration, to provide reassurance, promote dignity and comfort, and connect through emotions and the five senses. Activities for someone in the late stage of dementia need to be shorter, less frequent, and less demanding. It's very important that steps are greatly simplified to meet changes in mental, physical, and social abilities. Focus on enhancing quality of life. Often repetitive activities are particularly calming and soothing. Things like folding dishcloths or sorting objects. Supervision is recommended and often required. It's important to note, as I've said many times, each person is different, so it may take some trial and error to find activities that appeal to them. In most cases, avoid sharp objects and only give items that you know will be safe. For example, if someone tends to put things in their mouth or to tie up body parts, avoid small pieces of string. It's important to consider the time and the location when planning an activity. Consider a time of day that is most appropriate for an activity. For example, for an activity that requires concentration and energy, choose a time when the person's level of functioning is at its highest, often in the morning. For an activity where the goal is to relieve tension, choose a time of day where the person may often feel anxious or just before that feeling usually occurs. Make sure that the environment is safe for someone with dementia, appropriate to the level of dementia that they have. In thinking about whether the environment is appropriate, Consider noise and distraction levels. Think about how long will an outing be? How much walking will be involved, and will there be places and time to sit and rest? Think about whether there will be easy access to readily available washrooms. What if your person decides not to participate in a group outing halfway through? Do you have a backup plan in that case? Make sure that the lighting is appropriate, that it's bright enough, but that there's no glare. Doing activities in a familiar environment helps to reduce stress and allows for better participation. So whenever possible, integrate activities into your regular daily routine. Structure helps to orient the person living with dementia, and many people living with dementia have reinforced with us how important that is. So let's look a little bit more at how to adapt an activity over the dementia journey. Ken has been an avid card shark for years. He struggles to play now, and he gets his cards mixed up during bridge. Think about what changes you might first consider. Maybe you help Ken to play. Maybe you bend the rules a little bit. And as the disease progresses, think about what other adaptations you could make. Maybe you switch to a simpler card game such as Rummy or Fish. Eventually, Ken might enjoy a simple game of Snap. And what about still later in the dementia journey? During the later stages of dementia, Ken may still really enjoy the cards, and he could sort the cards, red and black, queens and kings. He could organize the cards by color or suit. He might like to shuffle the cards and put them back in the box. All of these things allow Ken to still identify as a card shark. However, we've helped Ken to adapt and continue this activity. It can often be helpful if there is a reason for an activity, and the reason could be as simple as asking the person living with dementia if they can help you with a project or a chore. Framing the activity as a way to help and offering an end goal can enhance a person's sense of purpose and perhaps increase the desire to complete the activity. You can also ask them if they'd like to join you in activity just because you'd enjoy their company. You could say something like, "Can you help me? I would like to do this together." Break down instructions into a few simple steps and demonstrate as you instruct, offering help only when it's needed. It's worth noting here that what can seem simple can actually be quite complex and require a number of steps. Think for a moment about what goes into making a cup of tea. You have to be able to initiate the activity, that is, get up and start doing all of the steps when you want a cup of tea. You have to remember what to do when you go into the kitchen. Get a mug out of the cupboard, get the tea bag, and turn on the kettle. But then you have to wait because the kettle needs water in it first to boil. Then you turn on the kettle and wait for the water to boil. I hope you can see that what seems straightforward can actually be quite complex. Be supportive and encouraging. Don't criticize. The goal is not the final product, but in fact, the goal is the enjoyment of the activity. Do the activity with the person or at least begin the activity with the person as a way to show the different steps involved. It's often easier to mimic someone than to listen to a set of instructions. As we demonstrated with Ken and the cards, keep adapting familiar activities to changing skill levels. For example, you might want to ask someone to only do some parts of a project, or you might leave partially completed activities around the house. For example, leave the dinner table with only some of the plates and silverware set in the right place. That may help to prompt and guide the person to then continue and complete setting the table. Thank the person or express your appreciation when the activity is completed. Remember, involving someone living with dementia, involving them in activities is not simply a way to keep them busy. Activities provide valuable information and opportunities to share a meaningful moment and boost self-esteem. And both of you need to be kind to yourself and to the person who cares for you or that you are caring for. Living with dementia is a skill set that you develop over time. So let's take a look at different types of activities, or rather, activities that fall into different categories. You'll notice as I go through these that there's lots of overlap in the activities mentioned. These are just handy labels to apply that may help you think differently of different activities. Reminiscing can be a powerful tool to create meaningful activities. And it's a great activity for people who have short-term memory problems, as they can remember the past and often enjoy sharing stories of their experiences with others. Many families have told us that they want to start documenting the stories that people tell when they're reminiscing about the good old days. Consider spending some time to look at old photos, to create a scrapbook, or write the stories and details down. This activity will be meaningful as you can reminisce together about the past while strengthening the details of the person living with dementia's identity by documenting who they are and who they've been. As the quote on the screen says, it doesn't matter how many times I've heard the story when it brings her so much pleasure to tell it. I know what she will say. I know what happens next. But I cannot take away her pleasure of telling me all over again. You can also use familiar objects to prompt a memory, perhaps by creating a memory box tailored to past interests. And there's several examples on screen. Try using a variety of aids that incorporates the different senses, like pictures, videos, smells, sounds, textures. Creating these kinds of memory boxes can be a valuable activity in the earlier stages. Spend time with your care partner, and talking about the items that have meaning for you can be very precious time. And in turn, that can help your partner to reminisce with you later in the progression of your disease. For example, for a former office worker, create a box that reminds you of your career. Include paper clips, pencils, erasers, papers, letters. You can always find a use for some of the junk mail you have. Throw in a calculator, file folders, notepads, anything that is meaningful to you and the work that you did. If someone used to do handiwork, you can put nuts and bolts, PVC pipe pieces and fittings, a piece of wood that's been sanded so there's no splinters. Throw in some fine grit sandpaper and a ball of twine. Someone who enjoyed cooking or baking might enjoy measuring spoons, a whisk, a spatula, and other related items. It can work for just about any type of job or hobby. Just be creative about finding objects that will be safe to handle. With reminiscing activities, focus on past relevant experiences, on that long term memory. And in particular, focus on past successes in any area, whether it's fishing, crafting, sewing, electrical or carpentry work, vacation or family photos. These activities help to focus on long-term memory, which for many dementias may be impacted much less and much later than short-term memory. And that can help someone re-experience past experiences and emotions, which in turn can help raise self-esteem and stimulate conversation. Anxiety reducing activities is a different type of activities, and these are activities that help distract from responsive behaviors or from feelings of anxiety and restlessness. Repetitive activities such as brisk walks or cleaning the counter or sorting objects are particularly effective at reducing anxiety, especially in the later stages of dementia. Listening to music, especially through headphones, may be helpful at blocking out stimuli that could be causing anxiety or stress. Sensory activities or sensory therapy, it's also an effective method for reducing anxiety, calming nerves, and providing comfort. Use at least one, and preferably more than one, of the five senses to elicit pleasant feelings, to jog memories, or to make a connection with the person's surroundings. Things like aromatherapy, massage, feeling the water, or being barefoot in the sand. When you think about aromatherapy, you could create scented cards with a theme, like winter or baking, or just give a hand or foot massage with scented creams. There's also things like sensory bags. If you look on the internet at DIY aquarium bags, so rather than purchasing an aquarium bag, you can create one with a Ziploc with water beads and ocean animals and things. Sorting objects is something that is quite good for as a sensory activity. Consider keeping bags of coins handy to sort into small glass or ceramic bowls, or mix nuts and bolts, or buttons. Asking someone to help you sort a pile of X can give them a sense of purpose, and that wonderful sound as the individual items clink into the glass or ceramic is good feedback. Popping bubble wrap. Come on, who doesn't love popping bubble wrap? It's fun, it's satisfying, and it's definitely something you can do together. Other examples of activities that stimulate our five senses include movies. For example, old favorite movies, scenery videos, or even something like sitting and watching the Frame channel together. Baking or cooking just to enjoy the smells and possibly the feel. Think of the feel of cookie dough or of bread dough or all of the pieces of that go into making up a good soup. Non-toxic finger paints can be so much fun. Just remember to cover the surface with plastic or brown paper. Having their hair brushed. This is an activity that most of us have not experienced ourselves since perhaps we were very young. And the feeling of having someone else brush your hair can be really wonderful. Calming activities are intended to calm the feeling of being overwhelmed by the environment. Activities in this category include, again, quiet music. You can create a playlist of old favorites. And again, creating these playlists early in the dementia journey can be something that then is very, very helpful for caregivers later in the dementia journey, where they're playing lists of songs that you've already curated. Think about pet therapy, and it doesn't need to be your own pet. Consider going to a petting zoo or find out if your neighbor can visit with their dog, or if the facility has an animal on the grounds or a regular pet visiting program. Especially if animals have been an important part of someone's life. Spending time stroking, cuddling, and just touching animals can be tremendously soothing. Yoga, Tai Chi, not only are these calming, soothing, but these are often skills that are retained for a long time, and they can be adapted to seated positions. Breathing activities and visualization. There are lots of free exercises on the internet, so you can try out different ones to find something that suits you both. Gardening. It might not be what I would choose in order to relax, but I'm told that many people find digging in the dirt or trimming plants very soothing. Again, it's about what fits for you, given your interests and history. There's even things called sensory rooms, and they're increasing in popularity. This is a space set aside for enjoying a variety of sensory experiences and where gentle stimulation of the senses, sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, and movement can be provided in a controlled way. Activities of daily living are something you might hear about from your case manager if you're at that point. Activities of daily living just mean things we do in our regular lives, like brushing our teeth, dressing ourselves, vacuuming, and washing dishes. For many of us, we fall into the trap of wanting to help, to protect our person from the changes they are experiencing. But in fact, continuing to do many activities of daily living as possible is helpful to maintain current skills and encourage a feeling of independence. As we've mentioned and talked about before, the activities will likely need to change as the disease progresses. For example, if we look at gardening again, initially little might change, except perhaps you need to do it with your care partner, and you might need a little help or guidance in picking out which plants. Then it might be that you can help select between very limited choices. Should we put the pink plant or the blue plant here? And then perhaps you would enjoy continuing to dig the holes to put pre-selected plants into. And finally, perhaps just sitting in the garden holding the hose. Helping with cooking or baking could including even chopping or just washing vegetables or measuring ingredients. Or it might be that you put out the particular recipe for that night and the person living with dementia tries to go through it, and both of you be prepared to call for pizza. Running the vacuum might be something that hasn't been part of their pattern in the past, but could feel really good to do now. Physical activity that produces a satisfyingly helpful result. Have half-finished activities can also be a great way to get people involved, as I mentioned when it comes to setting the table, because it can help motivate the person to finish the started activities, and often they're activities that don't require instruction and can help to promote independence. Things like some towels folded on top of the laundry basket, or, as I mentioned, the half-set table. For many of us, simply seeing a half-finished chore will almost instinctively prompt us to finish up. Again, consider past roles, which can help maintain self-esteem by providing continuity in life through familiar roles. Think about past hobbies or committees and how you might involve club members to continue to include a person now living with dementia in meaningful ways. Have an open discussion about the changes. Perhaps someone who used to be the chairperson can no longer manage that level of responsibility and multitasking, but they would love to be responsible for helping to set up the chairs for the meeting or to set out cups for coffee. Think about a former place of employment and include colleagues. Find out if shared coffee time is a good time to visit. A former fire chief loved to spend time at the station and helped with washing the trucks or even just visited. No one else shares stories like others in the same profession, whether it's firemen, police, nurses, especially emergency room nurses, even garage mechanics. It could be that just at closing, the manager or a former colleague could sit and discuss problems from the day. Many roles have an internal language, and it can be really helpful to hear that language again. Even when someone has moved to a long-term care home, meaningful activities are so important for well-being. I knew of a former businessman who would come into the main nursing station and help file. The nurses had set materials aside for him with various colored file folders and papers, and he would work away feeling productive and helpful. And he would often call a business meeting with the folks at his dinner table at meals. Another way to think of grouping activities is to think of them as connecting with body, mind, and spirit, or physical, mental, and spiritual activities. Taking care of our physical health during stressful and uncertain times is crucial to maintaining our ability to cope with change, manage losses, and stay well. Physical activity allows us to expend energy, which is good if we're feeling restless or bored. Make physical activity part of your routine. Put it in your daily schedule. Sprinkle fitness into pieces throughout your day. Climb the stairs twice in the morning and twice in the afternoon. Do 5 laps around the house every time you leave the bathroom. Eating healthy foods and getting the right amount of sleep will help to ensure you have the energy to keep moving. Any kind of physical activity can be good, and there are many, many ways to adapt. Consider current physical abilities and ensure the environment is safe before beginning. Just getting out for a walk can allow you time to enjoy the moment, breathe in the air, and get moving. Think about cutting a pool noodle in half and getting a large balloon ball at the dollar store. Sit across from each other in chairs in your living room or in the backyard and whack that ball back and forth. It's amazing how much laughter this can generate. Dancing can be done sitting if balance or safety is a concern. Music can lift our spirits and literally move us. Even singing and clapping along to your favorite song is enough to get your heart rate up for a few minutes. Soup cans can make excellent weights for at-home workouts, and you can do gentle stretching almost anywhere. Connect with the Alzheimer's Society to find out if you have a Minds in Motion near you. and give it a try. It's a wonderful program to combine gentle exercise with social interaction. Engage your mind with things like reading the newspaper or reading out loud. Reading abilities are likely to change as dementia progresses, and someone who used to enjoy a deep, involved novel may find the shorter articles in a magazine more enjoyable. Especially earlier in the progression of dementia, learning new skills can be enjoyable, things like basic knitting or learning how to email. Keep in mind that for many dementias, short-term memory may be impacted, and so writing clear, simple instructions can be helpful when returning to a new skill. Consider word games like finish famous sayings, a stitch in time, or nothing ventured, or try watching game shows. Creative activities like listening to music, painting, or visiting an art gallery provide an outlet for emotions and opportunities for self-expression and communication. They provide a connection to the outside world and can just bring back pleasant memories and emotions. Humans are social creatures, and the effects of not being connected are detrimental to our health and well-being. Activities that meet our social needs and nurture our spirits can include things like dancing, or going to church, or eating out, or social games like bingo. Think about celebrations like birthdays and holidays, visiting family and friends, and spending time with pets seems to fill up something inside each of us. It might not leap into your mind first, but doing errands can be quite social. Think of going to the hairdresser or the barber. Adult day programs are a great resource and a terrific way to stay social as the disease progresses into middle and later stages. We hear positive feedback from many individuals living with dementia and caregivers. However, sometimes even the staff at an adult day program can be challenged to engage their participants. A caregiver recently shared an example of this. Naresh was feeling a bit frustrated with the adult day program that her husband was attending because for much of the time that her husband was there, the main activity seemed to be bingo. He was bored and he didn't want to go back. Naresh had been doing a lot of research into activities for people with dementia and had collected a bunch of good group activities into a booklet that she presented to the facilitators of the adult day program. She even offered to come in and lead several of the activities to get them kick-started and try different things. As with all parts of dementia care, we encourage you to feel empowered to advocate for yourself or a family member. As in Naresh's example, it can be helpful to speak with staff about the challenges you see and to provide them more information about yourself or the individual you are supporting to help engage in programming, or to offer suggestions that you have found helpful that everyone may benefit from. And finally, to nurture our spirit, there are, of course, those activities that fit more obviously into this category. Singing hymns together, or even just listening to music. Going for a walk outside. Every season brings wonderful things to look at, even just in the garden around a long-term care home. And of course, spiritual ceremonies or religious services, prayers or meditation all help to feed our spirits and our souls. So to summarize, focus on remaining skills and knowledge, not on lost abilities. Focus on what the person can do, not on what they can no longer do. And keep in mind that because of dementia, a person's preferences may change and they may be open to trying things that they would not have considered previously. Above all, it's important to keep in mind that the process of doing an activity is the goal, not the outcome of the activity itself. Thank you so much for your time today. If you have any questions about living with dementia or are interested in any of our programs, or have questions or want to know more about what was covered in this video, please don't hesitate to call our First Link Dementia Helpline. English services are available Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. at 1-800-936-6033. We also have helplines for the Chinese and South Asian communities available Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and those phone numbers are on the screen. Please don't hesitate to call with any questions, and don't forget to check out the helpful resources that are linked below this video.